If you've ever found your business stuck between not having enough clients and then having too many staff, maybe you get another client, now you have to hire staff and you're not sure if you can afford it, you're kind of deadlocked in there, this is the video for you. Now, it can be the worst feeling, not knowing where to go, feeling like you're trapped because you don't know that mix between actually getting new clients and having the staff to service them. This video is going to go through all of that and get through the other side so that you'll have clarity and confidence on what to do next. I'm also going to share with you the story about how I took my business, an agency in this case, from really low-end $1,000 a month retainers to $30,000 plus retainers by changing just a few things which aren't what you might expect they're going to be. I'm going to take you through this in 3 steps. First of all, why at certain stages of growth, owners get trapped and keep on hitting an invisible ceiling. Second of all, why you just can't get out of this just by getting more clients. And third, what you can do to break this seeming invisible ceiling that's above you that's holding your company back. Every week I hear from owners who are completely in the weeds. They feel stuck because if they hire more team members, their margins will be severely impacted, and that means less money coming home. But if they don't hire, they'll just never get out of the weeds and they won't be able to elevate themselves, elevate the business, and really take to the next level. It's kind of true. They feel trapped and they are trapped, and most of them never get past this ceiling. And the reason is actually pretty simple, and that's because the economic model of their business does not work. It's actually preventing you from getting to the next stage of business. So if this is you and you're feeling trapped in any way, or you feel stuck between getting more clients and staffing it, and there's just not a lot of wiggle room, it might be because of this economic model problem. So let's talk a little bit about that as our first step. Let me give you an example. Let's pretend we've got a marketing agency. Let's say it's got 4 to 6 team members, and let's say that their average retainer is $4,000. Maybe your economics are a little bit different, but let's just take this as an example. Maybe this agency is just humming along and it's doing fine, margins are good, and they start building more clients in the client base. They start increasing the client base, and that means they have to hire more team members. So as it starts to grow, it starts to break and wobble a little bit. All of a sudden, things are not so straightforward. The owner can't figure out how to keep all of those plates spinning all at once. What's happening here is that the business is starting to hit a certain amount of complexity. And while it seems like it should be able to scale linearly, it seems like in your head, you're thinking that, oh, well, if I got 4 to 6 people and I'm doing $4,000 a month retainers and I can support this many clients, if I double the number of clients, it should work if I double the number of staff members that I have, double the size of the team. So you're thinking in this linear way. Unfortunately, the world doesn't work that way due to complexity. So let's look into this complexity problem and what it means for what you have to do internally to make the economic formula work and get out of this trap. Here's an illustration of what this complexity looks like. You might start out and you've got a small team. Let's say you've got 3 team members, and there's only so many communications that need to happen between the 3 team members. But then you might increase to 5 team members, and all of a sudden there are that many more connections, that much more communication that needs to happen. If you double it again and you get to 10 different team members, now you've got many more kinds of communication that have to happen. And some agencies or some companies try to solve this problem by essentially parceling it off into different units. But still, there's a communication overhead here, which makes everything be less efficient. So this is the problem. This is the problem of complexity that is challenging the economic model that you have and making your expenses, your costs, and the effort as an owner non-linear. In other words, if you were just doubling the number of clients and charging the same amount, you can't get the same margin by just doubling your staff. By actually doubling your staff, you are inherently increasing the complexity because each staff member gets less efficient because of all the additional communication layers that you have to have. And you as the owner can only watch so many things at once. So it feels like you're pulled in more and more directions. So it's a very important principle that's going to point to what you have to change in terms of your economic model as you grow to not get trapped in this place where you can't take on more clients without taking on more staff, but the more staff means more expenses, but your margins can't support that. So you have to internalize this. Let's dig in a little more and understand what this is about. So as I mentioned, the margins will start to go down as you are having all of these additional communication paths internally. Remember, you also have multiple clients. So you've got communication pathways going outside to the clients. And if you're dealing with more than one person at each client, all of a sudden this is starting to really get very complicated. So what might have been an agency of a small size of maybe you've got 4 to 6 staff members, now all of a sudden you've got a twice the size organization with many more connection points, and you might have had a margin margins at 20%, at that point, now you're squeezed down to 10. This is probably what's happening to you if you get stuck in this way. If your business is like this, whether it's an agency of that size or frankly, this works any kind of service and business, the same thing is going to happen to you. And the first instinct that you might have at this point is, well, I'm just going to go get more clients. The problem that I have here, why I'm stuck, is there isn't enough revenue. And this is the normal instinct for any business owner to say, I'm going to throw more clients at the problem. In other words, I'll just get a bunch more clients, so I'll have more income, so therefore I can hire more people to get me out of this trap. But that actually is not going to solve the problem. What's actually going to happen if all you do is pile on more clients is your margins are going to get worse and worse. You're going to pile on more clients, which means you have to hire more staff members, which means the complexity, the number of connections between people, the amount of communication that has to happen is going to go up. So this actually will exacerbate the problem. If you think you can grow your way out of inefficiency, that is the key problem with this thought. Now, if you're at this point, I feel for you because I have hit this point in multiple businesses where I felt like the company had just kind of hit a plateau. I just couldn't get beyond the ceiling. So the next question is, how do we deal with it? How do we break that ceiling and get to the next level in the business? And we do that by asking ourselves, well, wait, there are other businesses, much larger businesses, which have gotten through this. They've gotten through the stage of growth. And then you look at them and you say, wait a minute, they don't charge the same amount I do. These larger companies tend to charge more than I do. So if you look across the spectrum, and I'm going to pull our marketing agency example again, and maybe a very small marketing agency might have $2,000 retainers, and a slightly larger one might have those $4,000 retainers, but a very large one might have $20,000 plus retainers. So you see that the size of the agency, in this case, correlates to the amount of the retainer that they are charging. And why might that be? Well, when they start out, they're starting out as a small business, and in order to attract customers, they're typically saying, well, I'm going to charge less than the big guys because that's going to get me business. And then they stick with that business model. And what keeps so many of them trapped is they're stuck with the same economics and the same business model and thinking they could be huge. They want to grow. They want to be able to hire more staff. They want to hire better quality team members, but they're using the same economic model they did at the beginning, and that complexity gets them in the end. So you might be observing and seeing that the big guys are charging more because they're big, but that's actually backwards thinking. They are charging that much because they are big. They have to, due to the complexity. Now they can additionally, if they've developed a good brand, if they got good results for clients, then they can also charge a premium. There'll be some price elasticity for that. They can charge a premium for it, and that also supports those higher prices. But there is a correlation there because there has to be. You cannot support a larger organization in most services businesses without having an element of this. Now, we can leave aside things that are hyper productized in one sense or another, because in those cases, you can sometimes press those prices low. But by and large, in most businesses where there is any material part that is service oriented, you're going to see that the size does correlate with the price. So do we just jump in and just increase our price? Actually, no, that is not the first place that we go. So let me walk through how I work with clients and what I do to take them from kind of that struggling point where they can't hire or they can't get more clients or they put them in a trap, and actually gets them to the other side where they can increase price and do so without price resistance. So when I'm analyzing this for a client, I'll typically do it in 4 stages. The first thing I'm going to do is look at the current economics of the firm. So what are they doing in terms of staff utilization, profit per client, profit for service line, profit per employee? And we're slicing all the data to really understand where is the profit in what is currently being done. Because what you will no doubt find if you do this exercise is that there are certain projects, certain kinds of clients, which will be significantly more profitable than others. And some you might actually be even losing money on. I'll often do this analysis on my own companies and I'll find, wait a minute, we're actually losing money on some of these. We have to dig in and understand where do we need to be focusing our efforts. So the first thing is to understand where you are. The second piece is to triangulate your area of focus for going forward. So you have to look at the skill sets of the team and a company. You have to look at the positioning of the company right now. Where have you gotten great results for clients in the past? And what are the most profitable service lines that you have? So you've understood in step 1 what the economics are. In step 2, you've looked at what the strengths of the business are. And third, we look at the market positioning of the company and say, okay, where can I plant my flag and look at all of the raw material I have to work with and really change the market positioning so that it supports a higher price? And where can I dig in, whether it's niching down into a certain vertical, into certain kinds of products, and how do I have to change how the marketplace views this company in order to support a higher price? And then finally, the 4th step is to increase price, but not before I've done all the other things. If you just willy-nilly increase the price without having changed an element of how it's presented or how it's delivered, it's probably going to fail, or you're only going to be able to just incrementally change it a little bit. Now, Now, as a case study, I have done this in multiple of my own businesses, and I'll give you the marketing agency example that I gave before. I started out with sub $1,000 retainers because my initial hypothesis in starting my agency was, well, I'm small. There are a whole bunch of people competing at the higher end. I will get business by competing on price. Now, that was a valid way of starting just to test the market. But very soon, I kind of outgrew that. And you get to the certain amount of revenue that's not terribly high. You're like, wow, it's really hard servicing a lot of sub $1,000 a month clients. So I made a jump, and then I went to $2,500 retainers. And then very quickly, you're growing, and it's like, well, okay, that's not good. So let me do it again. So we went to 5,000. And then after that, it was like, okay, well, this clearly works again and again. And so now I'm going to jump. And then we went to $20,000 plus, and some retainers up to $30,000. And you might think that this happened over a span of many, many years. In actuality, it was a stair step. There were a few times, for instance, the shift from the $2,500 to $5,000. You'd think that that would be a big thing, has to be done gradually over years. That actually took place over the course of about 4 months because we did this process and we understood where we were making money, where we weren't making money, where we were strong, where we were getting good results for clients. And that allowed us to leapfrog to a whole nother level because we had tuned our offering much better to the marketplace. Then when I did it again, when we hit a ceiling from the 5,000, I kind of just decided to YOLO and say, okay, well, I'm just going for it and let's start charging really high amounts. So I just ran this process again, and it took us about 90 days, so about 3 months to run the process in between when we were charging 5,000 and when I started pitching $20,000 retainers. Did we win them all? No, not at the beginning, but we got to the point where we could legitimately do that and land $20,000, $30,000 retainers. And not 3 years later, we had gone from 2,500 to 20,000 plus. So by using this process, you don't have to be trapped. If you're feeling trapped, if you're feeling like I can't make that next hire, if you're feeling like, well, I just need to throw more clients at the problem, take a step back and ask yourself, is my economic model broken? Because if you go through this process so that you can increase your prices, you will have the luxury of being able to hire A-player team members and take on, frankly, better clients, because the more that you tend to charge the clients, the more that they're spending with you, the more they tend to take your advice. So if you want to be in that position, take a step back, understand that you're trapped because your economic model is broken, and make that the priority that you really focus on right now.